This is the counter convention to that convention of billionaires that's going on. This is the People's Convention here, and I want to just thank you for standing up. And I want to salute Zakim. I've never met you before. It's really great to hear your work, and so much honor to your work. And to my brothers in the Green Party, I want to thank you so much, and to Joe as well, and to all of you. And like we've been hearing, we're in this moment of crisis. And, you know, it's no secret that the African-American community has been in crisis from the get-go here. And it's not just that the funds aren't coming to the African community, they're being extracted from the African-American community. Throughout history in this country was founded on extracting the wealth, the labor, the vision, the spirit of the African-American community. And, you know, it requires a real stop everything, and we gotta fix this. Because what we're seeing with the police violence is just the tip of the iceberg. Nobody here thinks that police violence is new, right? No. What was new was just those cameras on our cell phones. That's what was new, but I think everybody here knows that violence wasn't new. And we really had a continuous line from the criminal foundations of our country in slavery, to lynchings, to Jim Crow, to segregation in our schools, redlining of communities in the housing, the racist war on drugs, which continues to be a war on black and brown people, and then police violence just sort of hitting the airwaves recently. And I think we're not going to fix this just looking at the police violence. We have to look at the violence of racism in every sector of society, in our economy, in our jobs, in our healthcare system, in our schools. As you were saying, our schools have been hijacked. Which schools have been destroyed? It's been the schools in the black and brown communities that have been systematically unfunded, which is why they fail. And then they are privatized and they are closed, and the kids in that community have to find another school, and it's not like that new school is going to be better. And the data shows that this privatization scheme is a profit-making scheme, is what it is. Education reform was a chance to hijack education and dismantle it. And that's just, you know, one sector of these racist disparities that are violent. We saw under Barack Obama, with all due respect, you know, we saw the banks get bailed out as his first priority when he came into office. And he nominated Larry Summers for his Treasury Secretary as his first act. And that was unfortunately a big wake-up call for a lot of people, that this wasn't going to be the people's president. Unfortunately, this was going to be a president who was serving Wall Street and the big banks. And what happened? The banks got bailed out. What happened to the black community in particular? Here's a really outrageous little fact that I think speaks volumes. Before the Wall Street crash of 2008, the average African-American family had been denied wealth for generations because of redlining, because of education discrimination, employment, the denial of employment, disinvestment in communities. And what that came down to then was the average African-American family had 10 cents of wealth compared to $1 of wealth in the average Caucasian family. An outrageous, unconscionable disparity. And then what happened after Wall Street crashed? That 10 cents on $1 went down to 5 cents on a dollar. It was the African American community, black and brown and Latino communities that got hit hardest by Wall Street's crash because of all that predatory lending in the African American community and the disinvestment. And it just, it makes the point that we are in a crisis. It hasn't been fixed. We're still in an economic crisis. The unemployment numbers are still twice as high in the communities of color. The health disparities are unconscionable. 7 years off the lifespan of a person just for living while black. Living while black takes 7 years off of your life. That is, like Martin Luther King said, of all injustices, health injustice is the most intolerable, immoral, and unacceptable. And as Martin Luther King also said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And in the last 10 years, the hardship inflicted on the African American community is growing because, as you said, it's both race and it's class. And so poor people all over of every color are getting poorer. The middle class is descending into the lower class. Poverty now hits 1 out of every 2 Americans is either in poverty or near poverty. And it's much worse in communities of color, but now it's growing out everywhere. So all of a sudden, like the chickens are coming home to roost for a lot of people, while our political system gets more and more elitist, more and more for the billionaires, and people are being thrown under the bus more and more, we have the beginnings of a real movement and a real coalition across many issues of injustice: racial injustice, environmental racism, climate injustice, health injustice, educational injustice. And let me just say one thing there. In the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with.
That's right.
Think how much power we have, because it's the 1% that's making out like bandits, but it's everybody else, just about, who's really struggling to survive right now. And especially people of color, and especially the younger generation, which is being hit double hard. Right now there are 42 million young people who are locked into predatory student debt. 42 million who don't have a future, who are just struggling to survive from the get-go, before they've even begun their lives. But here's the cool thing: 42 million is enough to win a presidential race.
Wow.
So there's only one candidate that will cancel student debt. We did it for the crooks on Wall Street. Would you say it's about time we bail out the victims? And here's the other good news. It doesn't even have to go through Congress, because the president appoints the chair of the Federal Reserve. It's the Federal Reserve that does this magic trick. The trick has a fancy name. It's called quantitative easing. That's how they bailed out Wall Street to the tune of $4.5 trillion. They bailed out Wall Street. Well, it's much less to bail out students. It's about $1 trillion, $1.5 trillion. So it's small, and it actually doesn't cost taxpayers a thing. It doesn't cost us a penny, because it's a magic trick. And what the Fed does is basically just cancel that debt. It says, forget it, the debt is over and done. And this is like the stimulus package for our economies, all of us, but especially the African American community is hit the hardest by student loan debt, and is hit hardest by the unemployment crisis. So Roy was talking about, what do we bring to the table to deserve the vote of the African American community? So I want to be really clear. The first thing that you do when you get into office, that I will do, if we can turn the White House into a greenhouse, which will make the world a better place, the first thing we do is we bail out students because then we unchain them and then they can come back. Right now they're working 2 and 3 part-time jobs just to like try to keep a roof over their head, and they're not even able to pay that debt. And you know what happens when you go into forbearance with student debt? It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and it becomes more and more impossible to pay. So we cancel that debt, we liberate a whole generation that's been hung out to dry. And by liberating them, who is it that's leading Black Lives Matter? It's young people.
That's right.
Who is it that's leading the fight for health care as a human right? It's the young people. Who is it that's leading the fight for $15 an hour minimum wage? It's mostly young people that are leading that fight. It's young people all around. So by liberating that generation, we unleash the ground troops so that we can fight for the rest of the agenda. And let me just tell you what the rest of the agenda is. It is making public higher education free for everybody.
That's right.
So it's free. Because you don't throw your kids into the water before they know how to swim, right? You wouldn't throw your kids into a pool. But that's what we're doing now by throwing people into the economy without giving people the skills that they need. After high school, you need a technical education, or you need a community college or college degree. You need that if you're going to swim in this stormy, dangerous economy. We did that in the last century by giving people a high school education, because that used to be able to support your family. That's all you needed. Now you need a college education. So by right, we should do it. But it turns out it's not only the right thing to do, it's the practical thing to do, because guess what? For every dollar we as taxpayers put in to higher education to make it free, we get back $7. $1 in, we get $7 back, because the economy produces more revenue, it produces more public benefits. So why aren't they doing this? They're not doing it because we are run by a predatory economy and a predatory political system. Like I think you were saying at the very start, it's two wings of a bird of prey. And that bird of prey is preying on all of us. So we can stand up and stand together because we got the numbers to do it. Remember, 42 million is enough to win a 3-way race? And if everybody in debt tells everybody else in debt, don't stay home. We don't need the corporate media. We don't need the corporate political parties. We ourselves as people, we mobilize, like Alice Walker said. We got the power, we use the power, and this is a mobilizing strategy that, you tell anybody who's carrying student debt around, it doesn't take much to get them out to vote. If they know that a couple hours of coming to vote actually can cancel this debt if we just bring all our friends in debt out to do it. So